Skype?
That's where I've been getting the video footage. I don't know if you've seen any of the recent
I saw the
Starfleet
black and
Boys.
white one. There's one
Oh,
that...
there's now it's in full color now, and it's good. It sings pretty good. I figured it out. All right, let's do the clap.
Okay.
Da-da. Da-da-da-da. 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 Da-da-da. All right, we're creepy. You want to do the?
I see. Yeah, Starfleet is recording the call. You're recording the call.
Starfleet, not me, but Starfleet.
Starfleet is recording the call.
Starfleet Intelligence.
Uh-oh.
Recording the call.
Dun
dun. Dun. That sounds like the Star Trek 2 running lights turning on scene just before they
add some more light to my
Do you want
to I'm adding a little more light to my proceedings.
I started something with Jamie on the last... Oh, you don't have your headphones on.
What?
This recording's not going to work.
Why not?
You don't have your headphones on. It's going to have my echo bass.
Oh.
You got to put those headphones... And then we'll start the podcast /YouTube, because that's when we'll be professional.
Okay.
Those are good headphones. There's a escaper.
Okay. Oh, speaker device. Oh, I have all these things now.
You could actually leave that connected. It sounds pretty good.
Device is ready. Live chat.
You kind of look like you're a Viper pilot right now. You got the Viper pilot vibe.
Do I?
You're Apollo.
Wow. How do I sound? I don't know which.
You sound pretty good. Just a little muffled, but it's all right. It sounds cool.
No.
It sounds like... There you go. So, say something. Testing.
How do I sound now?
That sounds great.
Really? Because I guess what it did is that it selected this one instead of the regular microphone, the one you got me.
It sounds cool. It sounds like you're on a ship's communications channel. It has a good sound to it, I think.
It does? Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll go with it then.
It also sounds like those guys that are selling you the Vitamix machines, you know, when they have the little... They're like, yeah, it blends everything. Yeah. Actually, I love Vitamix, by the way. All right.
I don't know if that's a good
Do you want to do the intro to the show? You know the part where we go, and we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today, we're focused on Star Trek The Next Generation, and we are at the season finale. You know that thing. Do you want to do that whole introduction? Or do you...
No.
Did you think I just did it then?
I think you just did it.
We're live. I just did. Season finale of season 6. Descent Part 1. I'm joined by the Doctor. Doctor, welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
It's great to have you back, especially, you know, you're always coming in at the end, just like the Doctor tends to do.
Is that right?
Saves the day. Do you want to give the summary, or should I?
I could try and give the summary. Well, this is the one where the Enterprise...
Descent Part 2.
What?
Don't bleed into Descent Part 2. I don't know when
you
saw it.
Don't bleed into Descent Part 2, yeah. Okay, so you're going to have to stop me.
All right, I'll try.
This is one where the Enterprise, instead of playing Angry Birds, they play Angry Borg. And they come across their... You're testing me, because it's been months since I've seen the episode. There's... They're investigating...
Okay, I'm gonna step in and do a quick summary that's a refresher for you to do your full summary.
No, we go with your summary and that's it. We're not going to do a summary and then another summary.
Summary. That's true.
That doesn't make any sense.
All right, here's my quick summary.
Quick.
This is super quick.
Timing you.
A new kind of threat is is presenting itself to the crew of the Enterprise. There's wow. And a new kind of threat is presenting Starfleet Boy's co-host with this mic in the way.
Yeah.
All right, so the threat is these Borg that are like nothing we've ever seen. They're aggressive, they're brutal, they're like violent, and they seem to say I, and refer to themselves as individuals. And the crew of the Enterprise gets Starfleet involved. There's a whole fleet sent with Admiral
Oh, but that's
Nechayev.
not all. That's not all.
Oh, what was else?
You
What was that?
have Data, who becomes like the Terminator, and starts beating up on this one Borg. He just delivers Judgment Day to this one Borg,
Stop it! Stop!
and
Stop!
and
Stop it! Stop
there's
it!
no rise of the machine. There's a rise in the machine,
You clearly have
uh,
seen Terminator. You went to go
a
see it.
rise in anger in the machine, and there's no salvation for these Borg. And what we get is the genesis of a dark fate, perhaps, for Mr. Data.
uh,
That's the most important part of the episode.
that's really good. Did you see the new?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't seen it.
Emma and I watched the first one last night. It's her first time. She has spent years telling me, I've never seen Terminator, much to my chagrin. And I finally rectified that. So now she has switched to, I've never seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh,
I
that's
learned that
crazy.
last night. Yeah.
Wait, so what was the verdict on Terminator?
Oh, she thought it was she thought it was good. She thought it was good. She didn't say it
Uh,
was great. She thought it was good.
Wait till she sees T2 though.
Yeah,
It's gonna blow
T2.
her mind.
Yeah, it is. The
T2.
back to
Yes.
Starfleet Boy.
All right, so you got that part in. That was pretty epic and good. But mainly, well, what I was gonna say is Admiral Chev comes on the Gorkin. Did you notice that it was called the Gorkin?
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it's named after obviously Chancellor Gorkin of Star Trek Six. So nice little tie-in to the past here. Anyways, so she sends a task force. The Enterprise is on patrol, and Picard. So they capture these. So they're chasing after this ship, and all of a sudden, the ship's trying to get away. It neutralizes their shields, and then two Borg, rogue Borg, we'll call them, beam over and distract the crew of the Enterprise while the Borg ship escapes. So they have these two Borg captives. One is dead, the other one's still alive. They put the alive one in the brig, and Beverly's kind of begrudgingly brings him out of,
Oh,
sedation. Oh, what happened?
I don't know. Sorry, I hit something and I shouldn't have.
Are you still recording?
Yes.
Oh, great. All right, then the
Sorry.
show must
It
go.
moves on.
The show must go on. Uh, sorry. uh, Speaking of, I know we can't spend too much time on it, but you've been going to a lot of shows. It's very cool. It's very exciting seeing your footage when I do happen to encounter it.
Oh, thank you.
Anyways, so Croesus, who is the Borg that is they're trying to interrogate to figure out what's going on, simply
That's the
refers
best
to
Borg name, by the way, I've ever heard.
Croesus. It's a good.
Croesus. That's a great Borg name.
You think it's better than Locutus?
Second best Borg name. I mean, really, Croesus. I mean, what a great name for a
It's a
Borg.
pretty cool name. Anyways,
Croesus.
Croesus threatens that all basically that biological life forms are now at a point where they're obsolete, and that the Borg's new mission is to destroy all biologicals. And the one he only refers to this one is their leader, and he will, or I don't even know even if he says he at that point, but he says the one will destroy you when Picard asks him what's going on, and Picard's like, "This is going nowhere." So, so then he then leaves Data alone with Croesus, hoping for more, information later. But then Croesus turns on some kind of field or signal, and Data is clearly affected by it the same way he was on the planet when he kicked ass and killed that Borg. And he seems to like change and become like angry and kind of like bitter and stuff like that. And Croesus says, don't you want to be free? Don't you want to be free, man? Come with me. And so Data actually buys into it, and they steal a shuttlecraft or shuttle pod, and they go through the vortex thing that the new type. I forgot to mention that the new Borg ship is like an odd configuration. It's not a
It
cube.
is. It is.
Um, and so they go into the same portal, and then the Enterprise is able to generate a portal later on at some point as well. They travel to it, and then they get to this planet, and they discover that the shuttle pod's been there for about 3 hours. They chase it through the wilderness, and they come upon a building. They chase the trail and they come upon a building, and it's this cool looking building that I forgot to do the research again, but I remember it's a cool real building that they used to
It looks
film.
like an observatory
Yeah,
almost.
it's something. It's really
Yeah.
neat. Anyways, they get there. They discovered this whole little enclave and like some experiments going on and things like that. And just as they're about to escape, they're surrounded by the Borg, the rogue Borg, and suddenly who they think is Data dressed all in black appears, and Counselor Troy knows the difference. She corrects.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
she's like,
and
"That's not
it's quite
Data."
traumatic in
Yeah,
how she
it is.
does it as well.
She does it. Yeah. So she points out that that's not Data, and then Picard says, "Law," and then he reveals himself, and then the brothers of Sung arrive, and Data comes in, and that's it. That's the cliffhanger. We can't talk about the rest of it. We can
Right.
talk about Captain Crusher a little bit, but there's a lot more Captain Crusher in part two.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
what do you think of my summary? Was it good?
Ah, very good. Very good
All
summary,
right.
sir. Very
I
good.
don't know. I I
Yeah.
I think it could have been better.
No, no, no. Straight to the point. Now we discuss.
Now we discuss.
Now we discuss. And I don't know if you remember. This is my memory because uh, I actually recall hating this two-parter.
Yes, you
And
did. You did hate
do
it. Do
you
you hate it
remember?
still? I remember
Do you
there was
recall
hatred.
my hatred of it?
I do recall your hatred of it. Actually, I think there was a consensus. I didn't hate this episode when it came out, but I was indifferent to it. I was kind of like, that's it. That's the season finale. Like the
Okay.
I thought Laura was gone. I wasn't excited about Laura, I have to say.
Okay.
Like, although looking at it now, and I'm going to skip to part two a little bit, there's a lot of questions for Picard. I have a lot of questions here about Data and things that I didn't notice before, like when Laura's deactivated, his pupils completely go away, and it's just the yellow circle where his eyes were.
Hmm. Interesting. Um.
Interesting stuff.
Well, like I said, I remember really hating this two-parter, and I was not looking forward to rewatching it at all. So what I did is I came into it in a different way. There was a novelization
Hmm.
of this is I think it's the last novelization of a two-parter in Star Trek. It's by Diane Carey, and I started reading it. And as I started reading it, I found myself drawn into the. It's going to sound weird, but drawn into the violence of
Oh.
the episode. I mean, the way it's written, it sounds very action and action filled and quite violent. And I was thought to myself, is the episode like this?
It
Like
kind of
suddenly,
is. There's
well,
moments of violence. There's definitely like, and there's
the
violent performances, I would say. It's kind of like the Martin Scorsese thing about Age of Innocence, where he considers it his most violent film, but there's no actual like, you know, fisticuffs happening. It's violent in an emotional sense.
right. Well, reading the novelization, I found myself being more and more intrigued to watch the episode. And then there was a part in the novelization where, and as I was reading it, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, is this in the episode? Is this something just for the book, or? But then I have a memory of it actually happening on the show. There's a scene where, and it has no relevance whatsoever to anything, and the plot where
Right,
Troy
right.
comes in and she's in Crusher's office, and they start talking about knitting, and
Did that happen
apparently
in the episode? That didn't
no, it
happen.
doesn't. It doesn't happen
Yeah,
in
I
the
was gonna say I
episode.
just saw it. I just saw it. I don't
No, it
remember
doesn't
but
happen
it
at
feels
all.
like it. I see what you're saying. It feels like it should have happened in the episode.
Well, I feel like it does happen in another episode, but
Yeah, it
it's
does.
written in, I don't know if it does or doesn't, but it was this weird scene where it's these two women and they're talking about knitting
Right.
uh
We
and
can't go further without talking about something. You just reminded me of something I missed when we were talking about these, ideas of what's in the. We
uh
can't we can't continue without talking about the great opening scene where Data's playing poker with Isaac Newton,
oh,
Albert
right.
Einstein, and now the late
Yes.
Sir Stephen Hawking. And like, so okay, so
Well,
that yeah, that was a pretty cool opening to this episode. You have to admit, we did talk about that. I remember.
again, going back to the book, what's interesting is that in the book, this is obviously not in the show, but in the book, it's slightly in the show. In the book, um, who is it? It's Newton.
Right.
Isaac Newton has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, it seems that way in the opening though too, because he's talking about he's rolling his eyes at them. He's like, "Oh, could you please move on?" He's just like, he just wants to talk about gravity and how he discovered gravity and the apple, and there's a
Right.
whole banter. Yeah, yeah.
He's very confused about what's going on, and the scene in the novel is told from his perspective,
Oh,
and it
interesting.
seems to imply that he is self-aware, but he's self-aware as Sir Isaac Newton, so he's completely confused by where his surroundings are and why he's here, and where is he going to go after this? Specifically, when Data
Oh,
cancels
shit.
the program, and Sir Isaac Newton basically says, "Wait a minute, is this death?" And then that's it. That's the end of the scene. So
That's so deep. That's so crazy.
it's a crazy way to start
That's really funny. The
a
novel
book.
yeah.
So I started rewatching the
That's
episode.
pretty. That's pretty heavy, man. That's heavy
It is
shit.
heavy. It's heavy, and I think it's going to have repercussions for later discussions. But so I said, you know what? I'm going to start watching this freaking thing because now I'm too, because I started reading descriptions of just the exploration of the ship that they find, and the novelization makes it sound like it's something out of Alien, where there's dead bodies all over the place and
Well,
all this stuff.
they go down to the base on the planet. They never as far as I remember,
No,
they don't
no, in the
board.
beginning, in the ship, when they first encounter the Borg, remember they're going. Is it a base or is it a ship?
It was a base.
Oh, it
Remember,
was
it
a
was like
base. You're right.
yeah, it
It's a
was a
base,
base.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
They describe the ex. See, I'm thinking alien. It's a ship, but
Right,
the
right,
way it's
right.
described, it sounds very moody and uh, menacing. So I started
Right.
watching the episode, and I see that it's all in the book. It's not in the episode. But I didn't find myself
Wow, you.
enjoying the episode in spite of it.
That's
Um,
funny.
it, 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 I mean, I wish they had done it more like the book, but
I think I actually enjoy like I said I felt like the same kind of like how could you end season 6 on the like I don't know, did we know season 7 was going to be the last season? Like was that an
yeah,
assumption? We did, right? Like
yeah,
and so
it was no.
I do I do feel there was a lot of that sentiment of like how could you end season 6 like this? Now that I know Hugh is coming back in Picard, it kind of puts a different tint on this episode. Like I'm definitely mining a little deeper to see. Although Hugh's not in part 1, he's just kind of like Chev gives Picard a hard time, like why didn't you do the thing? Like why would you put this Borg back into the mix? Why would without the fatality program? Like why are you not considering the lives of the
What
Federation?
do you think about that? What do you
I
think about?
I have to say like I can't say she's wrong, but I can't say she's right. You know what I mean? Like there's a fine line. I do think she crosses it a little bit because we know Hugh. I agree with Picard. In other words, like I do agree that he did the right thing by not, using Hugh as an instrument of death for all the Borg, right? Like
You would have done the
genocide.
same thing.
I think so. Yeah, I think I think I would have done the same thing. Or rather, I can't even know, but I agree with Picard. That's all I can say is I
But
agree.
you agree with Picard because he's Picard, or you agree with her because you would have done the same thing?
I think I would have done the same thing.
You would have done the same thing.
I don't think I
So
could have killed Hugh. I don't think I could have done that to
wait
Hugh
a
and
minute, wait
like
a minute. But that's not. But did they were they said suggesting to kill you, or were they
it,
objecting to?
Nechayev is bitching at Picard because she says, remember their plan was to infect Hugh with an image that would
Right.
create like it would have meant the death of Hugh and all the Borg. Like Hugh was going to be the carrier of like a disease essentially that would kill all the Borg, so he would die as well. And
Oh,
when
that's true.
when Hugh showed, individuality, at that point Picard made the decision that we can't use him in this manner. Before he thought it was just like a computer program that was operating a biological shell, and now he realized, oh no, there's a person with a soul inside of this thing. Like if separated from the collective, they can be free or we see that later. Again, 7 of 9 is going to be that, right? Like that's going to be explored even further. But here we get the admiral really upset, and I think this is like the biggest decision. This decision, at least in Star Trek, this decision kind of has impacted Picard throughout the rest of his career. Like, he is, in fact, he made the wrong choice on a purely logical level. Like he did kind of how many thousands and thousands are going to die in the Federation now because he didn't kill this one individual Borg, and there's going to be a lot of death that comes after. So Picard may have made the wrong decision, is what Nechayev is saying here. It's pretty deep. It's pretty heavy stuff. And that I didn't catch on to that when I originally saw this episode, but that's kind of the vibe that I was kind of catching on to this rewatch, was like, oh, this is pretty heavy. And then later in part two, there is an existential crisis presented for the Federation too, because we'll talk about this very briefly, but basically the plan's been stepped up. It's no longer assimilate. It's like, oh no, we're just going to create these replacements for all of you that are pure. It's going to be a bunch of datas and lores with, and then your synapses, which is what they're trying to do with Geordi, are going to be transferred to these robots. So it's another step in the end. And so I wonder if that's what's going on. The character, that the girl and Data being in the trailer, I wonder if they don't just to like take that to the extreme, where now maybe that is the problem. You saw the line of like these android looking things, like maybe Hugh and the Borg that survived this incident will go on to do some worse things. Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
That was a
Um,
soapbox. That was a soapbox moment there.
there we go. The scene with the admiral. I think that was one of the things, because now I have to admit I do like the episode more than I did back then. I loathed the episode. I found myself enjoying the episode, which is a rare thing for me. So it's a rare turnaround. But
Wow.
but I am still sort of doing an autopsy of my hate for the episode, and I think one of because the thing I kept putting myself in the mind frame is that when we first watched it originally, obviously, you know, it was the current state of things. This is the current state of, we did not know first contact was to come. We did not know anything of what was to come later. So every episode of Next Generation was the new status quo handed to us week by
Right,
week.
right,
So when they
right.
made when you present to us the Borg as they are in this episode, it it just seemed so devastating to me. And I was so vested in this show, in Star Trek, that it seemed like a betrayal of the potential that we'd seen in their introduction. That to me, obviously, being a Doctor Who fan, they were the Cybermen
The
right
Cybermen, yeah.
away, and the Cybermen are relentless, and you don't feel you don't feel anything for the Cybermen. They're evil. They're pure evil, and you want to destroy them because they're going to destroy you. And when the Admiral has that conversation with Picard, where it's really a reprimand,
Right,
and
it is,
it's a
right.
reprimand of Picard. But it's
That's a great
curious.
scene. It's a great scene, by the way. Just Picard kind of really seems a little like stumped, like he doesn't know how to
Yeah,
answer.
he doesn't.
And then he stands up and he's like, "Yes, sir." Like when she's like, "Don't let that happen ever again." Basically, she's like, you don't even deserve to get off that one time, but if it happens again and you have the chance to kill them all,
Right,
do it."
right.
Yeah.
Well, when we were younger, we were always comparing Kirk and Picard, Kirk and Picard, Kirk and Picard, and I think that was a moment where we'd be like, okay, Kirk would have just killed Hugh, and Picard didn't,
True.
and um,
Do you think Kirk would have just killed Hugh?
yeah, I think Kirk would have killed Hugh. Yeah, of
What if
course.
Hugh was what if Hugh was a girl?
Oh, then he would have banged Hugh and saved the Borg
Through love.
through
Love
love,
would have saved love would have
love of
saved the
Shatner, the
That's
Shat
the
love.
problem is that Picard was not willing to love the Borg. He liked
He,
like
he
Kirk.
had to sleep with
It's
you in
like-
order to save the Borg.
Okay, okay.
Wait
I
a
ca-
minute
I
now.
can't I can't disagree with you, unfortunately. It's like
Now we're going into a whole different,
you that was new territory there.
that's undiscovered territory there. Um,
Nice tie-in, undiscovered territory or country.
a country. Um, no, but I mean, I think again, putting myself into the mindset that I was, whatever, how many, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I think that was why I was just so angry at this episode,
Yeah,
is that it kept reminding me of how this
that
is
was done.
that,
You didn't
yeah.
like you just totally didn't like the humanizing of the Borg,
No, I thought it was too soon, to be honest. We didn't get
but
enough of.
it was too soon. And then the other thing is that there's no real investment from the show in it. You get he after this. I mean, now we're finally coming back to this in Picard, which is interesting in a way, and we don't know how it's going to be handled. Like they may not even refer to this, and they may not
No,
fill in
they
the
will,
gaps.
absolutely.
You think so? This is
Oh,
an
without a doubt.
yeah. So all
Oh,
right,
it's without a doubt. I think the other thing that I came to realize is the again, you don't know it at the time. You can only see it in hindsight, looking back.
right,
Is
right.
one is the importance that this episode will have for what you're wearing up there, for the show that's coming.
Picard, Picard,
Picard, but
Picard is
also
coming.
but also First Contact in many ways is this is almost like a dry run for First Contact in some ways.
It
There's
is.
similar issues because you
Well,
have
chasing them through the wake, things like that, like all these kinds of different things. There's
you have
elements of it for
that
sure.
there's elements of it, but you have Picard being tested by that decision in a way, and you just said that Picard couldn't send Hugh, he couldn't kill Hugh because he saw that there was a human,
Or an
there
individual.
was an individual there. But
Yeah,
in First Contact, you get the opposite. Remember, Picard seems to have lost all that,
yeah,
and
he does. You're absolutely right. He's crazy. He's Ahab. He's gone
he's
nuts.
Ahab,
But do you think
so
this
he
decision?
regresses.
It could be that even though we don't get that tone in the ending of the two-parter at all when we talk about the second one, but maybe this moment with Nechayev kind of started
Exactly,
steering him in that direction.
exactly,
Yeah, it's great.
exactly.
Yeah,
So you have Picard maybe in the back of his head thinking, wait a minute, every death that happens in First Contact, I am inadvertently responsible for.
Responsible for it. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
So
that's
you
interesting.
have Picard dealing with his with his Borg legacy, let's say, which is the A plot, and then you have the B plot, which is Data being tempted by the leader of the Borg, which in this episode is Lore, but in First Contact, it's a different type of temptation and it's a different leader.
But
But
very
it's a
similar. Yeah.
similar, and it's also playing on his emotions. I mean, he turns
Right.
off the emotion chip, but still, it's a similar plot. And I found myself, wow, this is
Data
interesting.
Data is different also after this episode in the sense that we definitely see, especially in First Contact and Generations, the emotion chip Data 2.0. So like Data does change after Generations as well. So it's interesting that, but it comes back to this episode where that kind of idea was established, and it's then
Right,
continued and taken further. That's
right.
interesting. You're absolutely right. We failed to mention that John Neville plays Sir Isaac Newton, who is one of our favorite actors, at least for Starfleet Boy, because of Baron
Howard
Munchausen.
Munchausen,
Da, 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 da,
and
da, da,
he's a
da,
Sherlock
da,
Holmes as
da.
well.
He's also Sherlock
He's
Holmes.
also
Yes,
Sherlock Holmes. Yes. Yeah.
yes.
Now he hadn't done Baron. Had he done Baron Munchausen at this point?
Oh, that's a really good
I
question.
don't
So
remember.
this episode aired in oof, when did it air? I did not do a lot of research. I apologize, audience. Since you were on, Doctor, I kind of got spoiled. It aired in '93, and let's see when Baron Munchausen. If you audience, if you haven't seen The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, '88. So yeah, he definitely did
Okay.
Munchausen already.
Well,
If you haven't seen The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, Terry Gilliam film, you should pause this video, go watch it,
I'll
and
watch
then
it and
come
come back.
back. Yeah, exactly. Good discussion so far. What else? What else you got in the? So wait,
Well, we're
have
let
you unpacked your anger yet? Do you feel like you can let it go? Are you
yeah.
letting it go? Yeah. Oh,
I'm letting
good.
it go.
You're
I'm
letting
letting
it
it
go.
go. I'm letting it go because, like I said, I think what it was is that that was the current state of affairs.
This
But
is truly
now,
wow. This is a
yeah,
truly
no,
great Starfleet Boy moment, audience. It's
I
like,
was completely, I was unprepared for how much I enjoyed the episode. I mean, Brent Spiner's performance with the anger, I thought was interesting. Um,
it's
I think
creepy. It scares me
it's
actually. It frightens me to this day when he turns into that kind of like a-hole, or when he does lore. I get this like intense anxiety that I had when I was a kid. The same thing happens to me as an adult. It's really horrifying control of your of your
well, the best
emotions.
part
But
is
yeah,
when
it's like crazy.
the best part is I think the highlight of the episode is when him and is it Croesus?
Hmm.
Him and Croesus are speaking, and then they go down to the little fingernail thing,
Croissant
and
witch.
croissant,
What is this?
croissant,
Croissant. Croissant.
Borg,
Croesus.
croissant, the
Cor-
Borg, and he does a little fingernail thing,
yes.
and which I don't know why
That's part
it seems
two.
like a
That's part two.
no, it's part one.
No, when Lore does the fingernail
No, when
thing.
croissant does the
Croissant
fingernail.
doesn't do the fingernail. He has a little patch on his thigh that he presses.
Oh, he does.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he has like a repeater, I think, of the thing.
Oh, okay. Well, what
So
he
he
when he
doesn't.
does that thing, and they're in the brig, and it's very subtle how he's telling him, but don't you feel this, and don't you
You
want to
can
do
actually
this, and
see Data fighting some kind of like he does these gestures and he's like fighting some kind of like, you know, this intense feeling that he's getting of anger,
yeah,
and even in that scene he even said like it's really really awful. Croesus is like, if you could feel these emotions all the time, would you kill Geordi? And Data's like, yes. Like, it's so
yeah. It's not so much that Data is feeling emotions; it's that Data is becoming homicidal.
It's
He's
really
becoming
bad.
Hannibal Lecter.
It's really bad. It's okay. We talk about this a lot, and so I'm gonna bring it up again. And we can talk about it more in our part 2 discussion because I think there's a lot more. He gets way worse in part 2 than here. Like here, he's just like there's danger, but he gets worse. What he does to Jordy in part 2 is just
Yeah.
unconscionable. Like it's so bad. But there's this idea that we keep touching on about, is Data dangerous? Like it seems
Yeah.
so easy to commandeer him or seduce him or like, supplant his programming. And in part 2, if not for like, and I don't even know how they came up with this idea of like a pulse that might trigger one specific program in him, like how they even know. Like we'll talk about that later. But
Right.
if not for that, like they were all screwed. Data was like murderous and ready to kill all of them. And
And
there was
it's
no way to change
yeah.
him. Like there was no way to change his mind at all. It was like so crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
They had to use it. They had to. It just shows how much of like, he is at the end of the day, he's a computer, and you could just like there's nothing. He doesn't have autonomy like we thought he did. He's subject to his programming. And I mean, I guess the argument is we're all subject to our programming, but there's
correct.
something mysterious about humans programming. I don't know. It's such a weird concept.
Well, they've both, but now what we have in this episode is we've had both Data and Picard corrupted,
That's true.
because Picard obviously has been corrupted by the Borg, and now we have Data corrupted by the Borg. So by the
Right.
time we get to First Contact, we have the two most vulnerable characters on the show going into
Good.
this to
Who
face
knew
the
that this?
Borg.
Yeah,
Who, right?
it's
It happens here.
yeah. Who
You know,
knew that this episode? That's great. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome.
we have our two. That is why the Borg is the ultimate villain, and it's really a no brainer that they have to come back in Picard, because I mean, it's arguable who. Uh, I mean, obviously, you can say, oh, Khan or whoever, the villain to test Kirk the most, but really, nothing in the old show matches what the Borg has done to Picard and Data, really, because
Right.
they've been compromised, the both of them, and there is an
We
argument.
never we never lost Kirk the way we lost Picard
We
or
never
Data.
lost.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, and these are the two heroes of this show, really, for all intents and purposes. So I think
By
this is
this
a
time, I argue by this they're all heroes by this point, and
well.
we'll talk about Beverly in the next discussion.
Oh yes,
Captain
yes,
Captain
absolutely,
Beverly. That
absolutely,
was what we were so inspired that led us to write a show. we,
yes. Thank God I wasn't
there's
sure.
I had a weird thought, and it was um I know we're skipping ahead a little bit deeper into this later, but regarding Captain Beverly, or Beverly commanding, we get another hint of that she does continue to pursue command in All Good Things, and I wonder how different Voyager would have been if that was actually Captain Beverly, like her first ship. Maybe the Pasteur wasn't her first ship. Maybe the Voyager was. And it would have been an interesting thing if like she leaves to command the Voyager and then gets lost in the Delta Quadrant. And then, with her crew, and we could have had the whole thing with Doctor. You're like, no, do you love Kate Mulgrew? I love Kate Mulgrew, don't get me wrong, but I would have liked it.
No, I mean, I wouldn't have liked this. I think it would have tainted Beverly. I think that I mean, my feelings for Voyager, I think, are known. That I think
But it would have been a different show. It would have been
no,
it
no.
would
I
have been a
think
kid.
no, no. They would have had her do exactly what Janeway did, which is that we're gonna.
If I could turn back time, if I could find a way, I'd go back to the Delta Quadrant and you'd stare.
Oh, share.
Chakotay. Chakotay.
Oh God.
All
Um,
right, sorry. We went too far. We went too far.
when we bring share into it, that's Star Trek Beyond. Um, no, but before we talk about Crusher, I
Yes.
just want to.
Well, we can save her for part two. We can save Crusher for part two.
Okay, okay. Um, I think the crux of this episode in particular is just Picard kind of wrestling with the repercussions of this decision, as you said, maybe the greatest decision he's ever made, ever
Mm-hmm.
will make, actually, when you think about it. Um, uh, Although his interactions with Q have enormous repercussions. I mean, they're comparable. They're kind of like
There's
it's
a
op-
well, and there's almost a connection because Q introduces them to the
because Q
Borg.
introduces
So
exactly.
it's all kind of tied into. At this
It's meant
point,
for
it's all
him.
kind of
Yeah,
yeah.
it's his dark fate. I swear I haven't seen the movie. I don't know why I keep doing this.
you're so,
Um,
you're so, that, I was like, how did you do that? How did you bring it all the way from over there to here? That was great.
but
Are you gonna do the thing that we talked about where it's okay, it's safe to do Terminator 2, and then Dark Fate?
I don't know. I don't know.
It is safe to do it. It's okay.
I guess I could. I guess I could. And then I'll show her 4 later. Because
Yeah,
4
all the other
stands on its
own.
own.
Yeah, you could just.
Because
I
I
think
like
you just
4.
do
I like
boom, boom,
Salvation.
boom, and
Yeah.
that's a good way for you to see it because that's the way they kind of intend it. I know that we all agree that Christian Bale's that one's definitely in, but it'd be an
Right.
interesting way to see it, and because chronologically it might actually fit where where this movie could be a third film, the third in a sequence.
Right. Well, that's what he says.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was we.
Total side. Yeah. Sorry.
You can tell we're
Um,
Terminator fans here on Starfleet Boy.
we're frustrated Terminator fans because we haven't seen the new movie yet.
The new movie, yeah, we haven't seen it. So high,
Um,
it's true.
the other thing that I think called my attention was the location filming.
The Vasquez Rocks,
Um,
right?
you know,
Wasn't that it? Yeah, they were back
oh
at the,
yeah,
and then
the
that building, and
that
the yeah,
building,
and
which we still don't know what it is, the structure. But still, whenever Next Generation does location filming, I think it um it just opens up the show so much, and
the lighting was really good.
the
The
lighting was beautiful,
Yeah,
and
and kudos to the remastering. All the effects shots look so good. The ship
absolutely.
battles and the chases and everything looks really top notch. I can't even remember what it looked like. It just feels like that's how it always
That's
was,
how it always looked like.
which is
Well, no, but I think even
crazy.
then it looked really good. There was
It was. I mean, it's a
there
high.
was a hue to it. I mean, no pun
Yeah.
intended. No hues
More
in it.
than one time, I remember seeing on Entertainment Tonight that they would suggest that Star Trek: The Next Generation was a very high budget, high production value show, and it looks like it shows like it it stands up to the test of time so far. It's been like 20 some odd years,
Yeah,
30,
yeah,
30, sorry,
yeah.
30 years.
So, oh my God. Oh, oh
Speaking
my.
of 30 years, Picard arrives to us in the new decade, and this is it. 2019 is the end of another decade. Like, you and I have memories, Doctor,
Wow. Going back.
longer than the road that stretches on ahead. It's to reference one of our old conversations. You said that you were upset that there wasn't enough Beatles representation in Star Trek. Do you remember that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
That
So-
is true. I hope the new show can rectify that
Rectify.
somehow.
Yes. A
I would
little
like
Rolling
to.
Stones wouldn't hurt here and
That's
there.
true. I would like to take a moment, if I may. I want to show the beautiful cover art, if I may. If I share the screen, will it show up? Will you see it?
There's only one way to find out, Doctor.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen.
All
Okay,
right.
and now I'm gonna go here. Do you see that? Do you see what I'm?
No,
No. Oh,
no.
it's useless then.
Send
Okay.
send the link on the chat so that I could do you know how to
Okay.
do that? So I could see
Okay.
it and add it to the video in post production, Doctor.
Oh, look at us.
We have a post production team here at Starfleet Boy, and
Wow.
they will provide the audience with the video with this in the post production.
All right, I will, because I really think that the cover art for the novelization is excellent. It's one of the best.
I'm gonna
It
pull it
because
up
it
on my phone.
shows. Yeah, if you just why don't you just go ahead and do it? Do Descent cover art, and there's you can see you'll be able to see it without. There's one where you can see it without the.
It's the two globes, and there's Hugh in the middle, and
Yeah, but look at
Picard, and
Data. Look at Data
yeah,
how menacing he looks there.
it looks super menacing in that. Yeah.
That, going back to how how you felt when Data, becomes this way. Uh, again, I just want to emphasize Brent Spiner's performance because, of course, we didn't know at the time. We didn't really know at the time as we were watching the episode that he was also going to be playing Lore. But it is a different performance than Lore. It's
Yeah,
it's
it's a
it's
whole it's
Data.
data.
It's Data.
It's dark data.
It's dark Data, and then he's going to be playing Lore. He's such a versatile actor, and you really see it in this episode. I was
100%.
really struck. Um, other things of note is well, I talked about the planets, the planet. I thought the oh, we got to talk about the ship, the new Borg ship.
Yeah, I didn't like it when
You didn't like it?
I don't remember. I remember complaining about it back in the day when we were in our lunch
The lunch
gathering,
bunch. Uh-huh.
the lunch bunch. Actually, by this time, we were definitely full effect into the lunch bunch because season 6 and season 7, I remember we were really tuned into, like, and it fits 1993, so it
Right.
makes sense. This is around that time. Um, but yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. But then now looking back on it and see, it looks a little hodgepodge to me. But when I think about it, I have these attachments to like aerodynamics, and the Borg defy. Like,
They do.
why are
Yeah.
Starfleet ships aerodynamic at all? Or do they look aerodynamic? They look like they can fly through atmospheres.
Well, I mean, I guess the
It's
theory is
like,
that
yeah.
they could if need be. The
But
Voyager does, the Enterprise
yeah,
does.
the Borg cube could, like, a lot of things can probably fly into an atmosphere. I mean, if you're a ship that's airtight, you can enter an atmosphere as well, a foreigner, that's not in your ship. So it's not. And then, in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and even in the original series, it's very clear that it's not ideal to do an inter-atmosphere maneuver. But both the Enterprise, the original series Enterprise, does it in that episode with the jets. The where they travel back in time, and they're trying to avoid the radar. Remember, like,
Yeah.
and there's jets that come and escort the Enterprise, or something weird like that happens. I forget. It's a very interesting show. It's the show that was trying to introduce that spin-off, uh, that military spin-off. Anyways, speaking of cameos, how great would it have been to have an
I'm
original?
trying to remember and I can't.
Oh, when we get to it in our discussions, you'll be delighted that you maybe you've never seen it. Who knows? I'm sure you've seen it at some point though.
No,
But
no,
it's
I've it rings a bell, but right now I just can't. It escapes me.
anyways, the Borg ship just kind of defied those conventions, and and now this one's even uglier. And like, the cube is bad
It
enough,
is
and
ugly,
then you get
right?
this, like, brutal. It's almost brutalist.
It's
Uh,
brutal. Exactly.
like, if
Exactly.
you were to compare it to something real world Earth. I want to take a moment to say a note. This may not interest you, Doctor, but I hope it does. Apple TV Plus, it's a TV streaming service that Apple has created. I think they're giving it away for free for a year. And so you can try it for a year, and then it's like $4.99 a month after that. But hey, a year trial is amazing. So I would highly recommend that you guys go sign up for it. If you do, there's a new show by Ron Moore called For All Mankind, and
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
I've only seen the first 3 episodes, but it's awesome. It's a great show,
Hmm.
and it does something that it's not new. Like other shows have done this, but it's an alternate timeline. Like it's like The Man in the High Castle. It's like an alternate,
Yes, I
a
love the
what
Man in High
if,
Castle.
yeah, a what if this happened. So the what if in this scenario is, what if the Russians had landed on the moon before we did? What does the space race look like after that? And it's so compelling. It's so interesting and so compelling. It screws with your ideas of history, which I don't like. I like show if you're gonna. That's such a it's such a precious time to me, like the space race. Like I know it was I know there's lots of dramatic stories to tell, but you know uh, it was such an inspiring thing when I was growing up to like read about the space race, and like the great characters that came out of that, not excluding Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, all the greats, right? John Glenn. But what this show does is it kind of twists all that around, and that part kind of like I enjoy it, but it also kind of like, I don't want to remember this as the history. Like I don't want my idea of the history corrupted, but it's still fascinating to watch, and I I highly recommend it. The first 3 episodes are available now.
While you were doing your plug for Apple, I looked up this structure that we saw, and it's actually Camp Kittimer from Star Trek
That's why it
Six.
looked so familiar. I
It's
knew it looked familiar. That's so cool. It's not often that we get one of those surprises on Starfleet Boy, but yeah, it absolutely is Camp Kittimer. How ironic that the Gorkin was in this episode. They must have been reusing there must have been something going on. Star Trek 6 must have been filming or happening at this time. When did Star
now
Trek 6 come out? I can't
no,
remember.
Star Trek Six had already come out.
Mm.
Yeah. Now what's interesting is that John Delancey filmed. I'm getting this off of Memory Alpha.
You mean
John
the digital book?
the digital book. Uh, he filmed an episode of the '80s Twilight Zone, which
Hmm.
also featured Brent Spiner at that location.
Oh, interesting. How weird.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty weird.
yeah. And yeah, it is the Brandeis Bardin Institute, now called the Brandeis Bardin Campus at American Jewish University. And it
Interesting.
is a religious retreat in the hills above the Sima Valley in Southern California.
Oh crap, I think that's where all the fires are happening right now, so that kind of scary.
Well, hopefully, it
This
is
and it's not, it's not gone.
it has not succumbed to any of those terrible fires that are happening there right now as we speak. Um, but now let me ask you, what did you think? Now we've talked. Now the exterior of the building is very distinctive. What did you think about the interior of that building? It I remember when, because we do see it briefly, and it kind of seems like you've got the Borg
Oh,
flags,
it totally echoes fascist Nazi
right?
themes. Yeah, 100%. If that's where you're going with that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
yeah. It's
100%
it's
where,
it,
yeah,
it,
yeah,
it's very it's black, and then you get these Borg come out, and of course they look fascist as well, and they're
yeah.
all like
There's a I think
ha.
there's an even mix of like Nazi fascism and the kind of that the Argentine like
There's
ideas,
this
like
weird
there's a
like
weird thing going on.
Nazi cyborgs, you
Like
know, chanting, and then you get lore, you get that reveal.
why is Lore's ambition so what do you think about I think this is the last time we see Lore. There's a possibility. Okay, so now going back to our quick tie-ins with Picard or interesting threads that may lead to something in Picard. Data's dead. He blew up into smithereens on the Data as we know him here. Data as we know him at this point is no more. That is gone.
Right.
Even though his head is 500 years older than his body, all of that is gone.
All gone.
All gone. What we think we have is Lore's deactivated body somewhere, because Data removes the the emotion chip from him and stored, like in an Indiana Jones type. So Lore's not destroyed; he's just deactivated.
Right.
So he could potentially still be around. But then we have the B4 as well, which was later introduced, and he's
there.
Status unknown. He's status unknown. He could be also deactivated and taken apart.
Right.
I wonder if after Data it was determined that like they're just we no more, we're done with the Soon type androids. Like, do you think that
You mean the Federation?
The Federation, yeah. They just decided let's box the other ones up and not worry about it anymore. They can be studied, and that's what the character, I forget her name, but the one character who's in a lab
it's the Romulans that are studying them, right?
Well, the body that's shown of a Soon type android, which is either Lore or B4 in the trailer, because it can't be Data. So the body that's shown in the trailer for Picard suggests that Starfleet has it's either at the Daystrom Institute or some sort of lab where it can be studied, but it's disassembled. It's not.
Yeah, I would assume that's B4.
Yeah, but it could also be Lore. We don't know. That's the thing. That's an interesting thing. Like, and if needed, if an android of that caliber were needed again to do something important, would Picard reactivate Lore? Is that a possibility?
Picard can't reactivate Lore. He has no. I mean, we've seen in the last trailer
he seems to not have access.
Right. Hit Starfleet is like, go home.
Yeah.
And actually, I would even say, obviously this is speculation. We don't know.
We have no idea.
We have no idea. This is speculation.
In episode 4 or 5 of Starfleet Boy, sometimes I randomly go back and listen. We had a discussion where we kind of predicted, we discussed whether Picard would ever retire to the Vineyard. What was the state of the Vineyard? Gul Scott suggested that it was not, and I suggested it became a public trust and it was restored, and like, we went pretty crazy. But now
I don't remember.
Now we come to find out that Picard is retreating to his family home, if not permanently, obviously, but he did retreat to it for solace or some peace or something, restoration.
Right. Well, I would go further to say that not only is Picard persona non grata, but I would say so is his crew, those who have stood by him, because Picard, I mean, it's understandable, Picard being the age that he is, even if he'd made it to Admiral or whatever, that he could be retired. I don't understand why Riker's retired.
Right.
And Troy. I mean, I don't. Especially knowing what we saw in Generations, where the one thing Kirk told Picard is, don't leave that chair. So
I know that a lot of people latch onto that, but Picard was under no obligation to listen to that advice. Like,
I would like to think that he would have, unless pushed out. Like,
out,
I feel like,
which is what it seems.
Which is what it seems like. So the point that I'm making is that I don't know if we're gonna, because you were saying, what if Picard can reactivate Lore? I don't think Picard or anybody he knows is in any position to do anything like that. I think maybe they've been kind of pushed away.
We don't know the status. We don't know the status of Geordi, Worf, or Beverly. And for all we know, they could still be very
They
There could
could,
be they could
but
be in Starfleet, and there may be, and they may,
or
there
not.
may be a a kind of difference of opinion that we're not even aware of, where maybe it goes even further. Whatever the disagreement was between the Starfleet and Picard, that led to his retirement or being pushed out, as we are speculating, that might be something that's a sentiment that's shared by Beverly or even Geordi or even Worf. So who knows? We may not know.
We'll know next year, or we'll know more next year.
We'll know more next year. Very good discussion. Do you have any more notes for this episode, or shall we wrap it up with a rating?
Well, I guess I feel whatever I have yet to say, I can just apply it
Yeah, part two. We
part
got
two,
whole part two. We got the.
the whole part two.
This is your preferred structure. I might add.
Yeah.
I tried to be a
No,
little
I like.
innovative, and I
Well,
tried.
yeah.
Yeah, tried to.
Well, speaking to that, I will acknowledge that the cliffhanger of this episode
The
is
Brothers Sung.
is one of the better cliffhangers.
It is a good
You are
cliffhanger.
kind
It's
of
true.
left in this like, what the hell? Because you really, because it's Picard with Geordi and Troy.
Right.
I'd feel safer, if it were me, I'd feel safer if I was with Riker and Worf. But no, I'm left with Dave with Geordi and so Picard must be feeling vulnerable, and the red shirt gets killed right away. Uh, or I don't know if that's in the second part, but no, I think it is in the cliffhanger. He gets
In the
killed right away,
cliffhanger, he gets
and
killed.
they're just kind of surrounded by these chanting Borgs, and then Laura comes out like just you're like, what the hell? And then boom,
Yeah,
cliffhanger.
and
That's a
to be
great cliffhanger.
continued. It
To
was
be
a great
continued.
cliffhanger.
It was.
All right, so I'll go first as is per tradition and
Please.
give my rating. I give this episode an 8.2. Just an 8, sorry. I give it an 8.
You give it an
That's,
8.
I give it an 8.
Okay. All right.
I'm saving a little higher rating for part 2 because I really enjoyed part 2.
Okay. I think this is a 7 for me. A 7
Nice.
is
We're
a
only a 1 point differential here.
yeah.
That's not bad. That's not
Yeah.
bad, Doctor.
Yeah.
Pretty aligned, I see. Yeah, I can't really say that, like, beyond the things that I maybe had qualms with from when I was a kid. I feel like now this episode means a whole different thing, which is an interesting thing that's happening, and it has to do with the excitement level around Picard. So who knows? Who knows what is? But yeah, I agree that there's stuff in here. This
Yeah.
is the nebula from which the star will be born. That
Yeah.
is Picard. It's true.
Yeah.
All right, audience, please, thank you if you've made it this far for sticking with our discussion. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we had, hopefully, discussing it. We'll see you on the other side, where we're gonna actually do a season recap, I think. We'll talk offline and decide what's next. So we're either gonna cap or jump right into part 2 and then do the season recap after. Depends how how you're feeling. So I'm gonna stop this recording, and live long and prosper, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Oh no.
What happened?
It did not. When I plugged in this microphone, it didn't record.